Standing here in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh, not far from the West Virginia border. And this is where United Airlines Boeing 757 Flight 93 left Newark, New Jersey at 8:42 a.m. yesterday on its way to San Francisco, California. Rescue crews, the FAA, the National Transport Safety Board, and investigators have descended here in this small town to keep an ear to the ground and as to why this plane crashed yesterday morning. The reason why it is so hard for investigators to find out what exactly happened? If you take a look around here, it's nothing more than cornfields and meadows. Large crater in the ground remains, about 40 feet wide and 10 feet deep, at the point where the plane fell from the sky at a 45-degree angle, and that is all that is left. FBI officials say the recovery of evidence is difficult because the remaining parts are no bigger than this duffel bag. The main task for investigators is finding the black box from Flight 93. It's buried somewhere in the wreckage behind me. Investigators can expect a major development to come when they locate the flight data recorder, which could take as long as 5 weeks. 38 people were on the plane, including 5 crew members along with 33 passengers. There was a 911 call made from the airplane shortly before it crashed. The woman was calling 911 to explain the plane had been hijacked. About 35 phone calls were made from the plane in total. Among the communication, we've learned the passengers were told the plane was hijacked, there was a bomb on board, and they were headed back to the airport. Stay seated and quiet. When passengers realized they were not going back to the airport and the plane was headed towards the capital, they made the heroic decision to storm the cockpit and save thousands of lives. President Bush is calling this the first counteroffensive of the war on terror. This is the flight that fought back in the world's most devastating terror attack. I'm Jack Kelly, reporting for WDCC News.
At around 9 a.m. on February 1st, 2003, the Columbia Space Shuttle took off with Colonel Jan Roman, the first Israeli astronaut, and 6 other passengers. As the space shuttle entered into the Earth's atmosphere, it exploded and broke apart, leaving debris flying through the air above Texas, Louisiana, and Arkansas, which eventually fell to the ground, leaving a lot of work for people down below. All the passengers died in the accident. After further examination, it was determined that some of the foam insulation from the gas tank fell off and damaged the left wing of the Columbia. The foam damaged some of the heat-resistant panels on the outside of the ship, and they were stripped off when the aircraft entered the atmosphere. Initial research led detectives and researchers to believe that this is an act of terrorism because of the presence of Colonel Roman. They thought that terrorist groups such as Al-Qaeda could have been involved because of Colonel Roman's past in the Israeli Air Force. After this incident, people were very adamant about finding out what caused this explosion. It then became public that this shuttle had many problems in the past, including in 1999 when there was an issue with the wiring on the aircraft. It also became public that the Columbia had a serious issue on 20 of its 28 flights, which is about 71% of its flights. This is way too high for a space shuttle, and the fact that it still flew was a surprise to most people. Many people have heard of the Challenger disaster in 1986, but the Columbia disaster was very different, as it raised many more questions on the safety of the space shuttle program, and some even wanted to end the program altogether.
Welcome to the WDCC headquarters, where we have breaking news covering the presidential election. While it's no surprise that this has been a bizarre election, many would say that it's been too close to call. Both candidates in the election need 25 electoral votes to become the next president. The election has come down to one state. All week, the story has been the electoral votes in Florida. The votes of Florida are so close that state law requires a recount of the ballots using voting counting machines. However, this seemed a quicker way to recount accurately. There have been thousands of ballots the machines could not read. Democratic candidate Al Gore asked for a recount of ballots in several strongly Democratic counties, but after the machines showed Bush was still ahead, Gore was convinced that the machines were incorrect. Gore wanted a manual recount, so it would have been done more accurately. When it became clear that not all ballots would be counted in time for the deadline, Gore went to Florida Supreme Court to try to extend the deadline. Florida agreed to extend the deadline, but not all of the counties had agreed in time to change the deadline, which brings us to now. We have just received information that George W. Bush has won the electoral votes in Florida, putting him at 270 electoral votes, which means he is the president-elect and he will be the 43rd president of the United States. I'm Vince Recchioni, reporting for WDCC News.